up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It's the aftermath. The first game of the Mayo era, preseason game number 1, 2024. Patriots win 17-3. A little bit anticlimactic, though, Phil, who was your color man on the radio tonight. Before we get to the game, let's get Phil's take on how that went. I didn't hear it.
It was great. I had a lot of fun. Bob Sosse's tremendous. Mark Capello, fantastic. They basically held my hand, not physically, but they figuratively held my hand through the whole thing. Made it very easy for me. Probably a little bumpy to start, which to be expected.
100%.
Had to do a couple reads off the top, which I figured, I'm used to this for TV. We do reads all the time. But it was a little bit different. So, just kind of getting the cadence right early was a little bit of a challenge, but I thought we kind of got into a little bit of a flow. And then as the game goes on and it gets uglier and uglier, let's be honest, it can get even more conversational. So, by the end, it was just me and Bob talking balls. Nice.
Yeah, and you're a raconteur. You can spin yarn if you have to. So I'm sure you did just fine with that. Meanwhile, an anticlimactic opener for Drake Maye. Just one series out there, goes 2 for 3. Nice check down to Antonio Gibson. Missed opportunity to, wasn't even a check down to Gibson, actually. It was a screen. Missed opportunity to Jalen Reagor, and then he was gone. He got one series. Jacoby Brissett got one series. Here's Jerod Mayo explaining a little bit of the logic behind it, which Phil and I are going to delve into. Offensive line.
Was there any trepidation over having Drake in another series perform in front of, with his, like, the second offensive line? Was that part of the decision? Or
that's always a consideration. If he's in there, you want him in there with the starting offensive line. We got to protect that guy. Not saying we don't have to protect the other guys, but that absolutely did go into it.
And do you feel you're going to get enough of seeing him in live action, going about it like this?
Yeah, like I said, this is the first preseason game. We still have 2 left. He'll have plenty of opportunities to go against other teams, the 2 other teams before the regular season.
Phil, how did you explain it to your audience when you heard the boos coming down? Did you echo their sentiment to a degree?
I did. It's disappointing when the majority of the stadium is there to see the player you took number 3 overall. That's disappointing to see him get one series. So the way I explained it was thusly. I understand the approach. I actually think it was smart to approach it the way they did, in that the first unit offensive line and Drake Maye were tied together.
Mm-hmm.
We've watched that backup offensive line, and even sometimes the starters, but primarily the backups, have been a mess in training camp. And you and I are watching practice. That's a sack. That's a sack. Oh, there's another sack. Oh, so-and-so blew a block. Oh, the Patriots decided to run a blitz, and wouldn't you know, they just completely left the guy untouched through the line of scrimmage. So I like that approach. That to me was smart. You do have to protect him. I know he needs reps, but the way they've handled him this training camp and now into the first game of the preseason is there's no rush. No rush. What's the rush? Why would we rush? So be consistent, which I think they were, and don't overload him with snaps in this scenario if he's running the risk of getting injured, which I really think he would have been behind another offensive line. My criticism would be this. If you want to tie him to the first unit offensive line, ask the first unit offensive line to play like a little bit more, just
Agreed.
A little bit. And I know it's early in the preseason, and somebody like David Andrews played a decade in the league, Tom. But protect him, great. But protect him and play him. Like, that's what I would say.
I was going to ask this later, but really it's germane to the conversation right now. What we're witnessing is the lack of urgency or addressing of the offensive line, again holding this team literally hostage with its development of players around that spot. It held it hostage last year because they did a poor job at right tackle. Trent Brown showed up looking like a Zeppelin for minicamp. He was ready to go by the time the season began, but then you had Cole Strange and Mike Onwenu, who both needed surgery, so they weren't available at the beginning of the year. And the development of Mac Jones, such as it was, or the rebound year for Mac Jones, was lost. The year before that, the offensive line, if it was going to be good, was muddled because they were changing schemes. So you can't do shit if you don't have the protection up front. And that's what I've been hammering since watching last season. That's why I was bitching about why you want to take a project at number 3 when you can trade down. Even if Drake Maye is going to be good, you need offensive linemen. So do you think, how does it improve, Phil, for Drake Maye? Is it just going to be because they're not going to play the ones all year, all week next week against Philadelphia? So that means, well, we can't put him out there because those guys might not block for him.
Well, so here's what I'm expecting. At some point, the offensive linemen that are going to play week 1 do need to ratchet up their conditioning level and the intensity and their ability to play more than 2 series. So my guess is second preseason game, even if those guys, and when I say those guys, there's a group of 4 that really are the offensive line starters right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a core of 4. It's Owenu, it's Andrews, and it's City. So my guess is those guys will get a good amount of work in that practice against Philadelphia, but it's just 1 joint practice. It's not 2, and then a game, which is usually the case. That's what we're accustomed to. So get them work the way you usually would, and then give them 3, maybe 4 series, but give maybe all of those series time to Drake Maye. That's what I would like to see them do, because Jacoby Brissett, you would think, is going to have plenty of opportunities to get competitive reps against great players in Philadelphia in that practice. So give Jacoby the practice. That's how I would do it. Give Jacoby the practice with the ones, and then give Drake Maye the game, and get him more reps than you got him tonight.
Yeah, give him the game. I would love to see it addressed in exactly the way you said, because, there has to be a level of urgency too, because this is the window in which you can do your most constructive development. Because once the season begins, almost all the reps are going to go to the one. You can't be splitting reps when you're trying to win games, or it makes a farce of the week's preparation to an extent. I'm sure the Patriots understand that. I look at this though and think to myself, you're really lacking urgency relative to what happened with Mac Jones. And I want to hear your input on this, so I won't give the counter argument in this, but Mac Jones had 56 attempts in his 3 preseason games in 2021. Threw about 19 times in each of the first 2 games, 14 times in the 3rd preseason game. That was a fast tracking by the Patriots because they had to. I think that the urgency is still there for the Patriots right now, even if they aren't going to be a winning team this year.
I think they view it differently, though. You view it that way. I view it that way. I think this is a great time to get him reps. As you mentioned, it's a great point. We haven't talked enough about it. The practice reps kind of go away in the regular season, unless they do something that, we're unaccustomed to. And they actually do give him real reps in practice, because Jacoby knows this and he's good. And this is really our biggest project of the year. It's even more important than us actually winning games, is making sure Drake Maye eventually becomes a great player. But I think they don't view it as being an urgent situation at all. Again, they have given him practice time. So in that sense, they are giving him a lot in terms of a volume of reps, but they haven't given him a single first team rep through 11 training camp practices. And the snaps he took tonight with David Andrews and Mike Owenu were, I think, his first all summer. So that to me is, we're taking our time. We're exhibiting patience. But I think the way Alex Van Pelt put it, Tom, when we first got an opportunity to talk to him after he was hired, or maybe it was after the draft, I can't remember now. Must have been after the draft, where he said, we're going to do this the right way. They are, like it or not, going to be extremely deliberate in how they bring him along. And that showed tonight clearly. Hopefully we'll see more as the summer goes on. Hopefully that's part of the plan, because obviously we'd all like to see him more.
And it's once bitten, twice shy. Again, the Patriots shouldn't have been in a position to have the 3rd overall pick. They should have had a first-round quarterback who played at a manageable level, not saying that he had to be here for 4 years and have his 5th-year option picked up, but you shouldn't have had to go back into the mix for it. And the reason they had to isn't because Mac Jones is totally unusable, period, ever. We saw him play okay. The reason was his development got stunted and ruined, and the coaching staff soured on him, and he soured on the situation, and his teammates soured on him. So once bitten, twice shy, don't do it again. I understand that. But there still is some entertainment value to be had. The Patriots, the last time they played at home, Phil, they lost to the Jets. They had 6 first downs. They had 180 total yards. Fans are showing up in the rain to watch Drake Maye play at 7 o'clock on a Thursday night, and they get Bailey Zappi poured down their throats. It's tough to swallow when Bailey Zappi gets poured down your throat.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the physics of that alone, just painful. But
Can't have it.
when's the last time they booed in a preseason game? I'm sure it's happened, but I mean that I felt it, you heard it, and I understood it. Which, like, normally you'd say you're booing in a preseason game. Come on, people, you're losing your minds. It's just a preseason game, but I get it. People are hungry for a good product, and
People want to be entertained.
They want to be entertained. That is what this thing is that we're all covering, and we all spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about. That's what it is at its core. And what the Patriots are doing and how they're handling Drake Maye is telling you, well, we're going to try to entertain you as much as we can this year, but you're really going to be entertained next year. That's when
why did they have to beat the Broncos? Why did they have to beat the Steelers? Jaden Daniels could be running around out there right now.
He could be. I think, you know what's funny though, and yeah. I'll continue to say this.
They might have taken Maye too.
They might have taken Maye too. That's number one. I know he's a project, and I know that's how he's considered. I think Jaden Daniels is a project in his own ways too. Mm-hmm. And I think Drake Maye is ready in ways that some of those that Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels aren't. Like, Drake Maye can throw over the middle of the field. Those guys didn't want to do that as much. Certainly Jaden Daniels didn't. You know, Jaden Daniels is not ready to protect himself at the NFL level, in my opinion. Whereas we've seen Drake Maye actually use a baseball slide and get out of bounds. Like, so I don't think he's that far off, quite frankly.
I don't either.
I've seen people call. I heard Felger on the radio, and I know, you know, he's great at what he does. He said, I think early in his show today, it sounds like based on the practice performances, you know, if you had to give Drake Maye a grade for his practice performance, it would be an F. And I know he watches our show. I know he's a big fan of the Patriots Talk podcast. I'm sure he is, but early edition and everything else. And I'm sitting there thinking, have we conveyed that he's been an F in practice? Because I really don't think he's been anything close to an F.
No,
I think he's probably been a B-, C+.
He's been exactly what I thought he'd be. You know,
and I don't think that's incredibly unready, I guess is what I'm saying. He's been what I thought he'd be too. And we've seen worse play in NFL games. So, like, I get it. You want to develop them, and you want to play it safe, and you want to slow play it to do it the right way and get the most out of them. But if you really had to play him this year, I don't think it would be an utter nightmare. I really don't.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about the timeline, he gets here in April. They give him a bunch of footwork and mechanical drills. People can master those pretty quick. But when pads come on and you have to master those things, and you're playing behind, again, as you've pointed out, a group that's not allowing you to get to the point where you could continue to show you're mastering those fundamental things because there's chaos unfolding, you're going to hit a glitch. Like I wrote today, the reason Jacoby Brissett has probably widened his advantage over Drake Maye since the beginning of camp is he knows where all the booby traps are. He knows where all the escape hatches are. Drake Maye doesn't know those yet, but there are throws. I said this on the radio. If you tallied up the 10 best throws at camp, 5 would be Drake Maye's, 3 would be Joe Milton's, and 2 would be Jacoby Brissett's. If you checked off the 10 most productive, 9 would be Jacoby Brissett's. It's just the difference between them. Mm-hmm. All that said, cut to the chase. I want my expert to tell me How'd Drake Maye look in those snapshot plays?
I really wasn't able to glean much. I mean, you probably
Ball came out good.
got a better look
Put
at
it
him than
where-
I did.
Put it where it needed to be on the body of Antonio Gibson. He was high. We've talked about the, amped up early, which is not a surprise, but at least it was in the zip code and it wasn't, going by like a rocket. He was fine.
He was fine. There was a pre-snap penalty, but I don't think it was on him. It was Chooks Okorafor jumps, false start. I believe that was for Drake Maye. That wasn't what Jacoby
That
Brissett.
was.
Yeah. So,
An aggressive
in and
false
out of the
start.
huddle, get the play call. Like, the operation wasn't totally clean, but I thought it was clean enough with both May and Milton. And I had no idea how that was going to look, quite frankly, because that has been an issue in camp, having to rehuddle and get to the line and time out and come back and watch snaps and all that sort of stuff. And we didn't see any of that tonight. So
We did see
check
a
that box.
couple of delays, as you know, too.
We did see, well, so
One they
was
avoided.
almost with Joe Milton, right? Which they
Right.
avoided. And then did they have one with Zappy? I'm trying to remember.
They
if
did
had
have
another
one with Zapp because he had the stink face on when they called it. Meanwhile, I wondered on BST Thursday night who made the decision. Here's Drake Maye talking about when he learned what his usage would be.
Kind of Coach Mayo he kind of lets offensive coaches kind of decide, and quarterback coaches and AVP. So really had an idea a couple days before. Coach Mayo wanted everybody to know, kind of have an idea of how much they're playing. So from that point on, in that conversation is just keep in house.
So, indicating it seems that this is an Alex Van Pelt and offensive coaching staff decision made on how much he'd be used. Makes sense, right? I mean, Gerard is there to oversee and coordinate, but not necessarily Bigfoot the coaches and say, we got to get him out there more. He could do that if he wants to. Maybe he will next week, but in this instance, it sounds like Alex Van Pelt said, no way.
Yeah. And I wonder, if you got some truth serum in Van Pelt or McAdoo, or maybe you wouldn't even need the truth serum. But, those guys obviously have a lot of experience in the league coaching offense and coaching in these types of games. Have they seen quarterbacks get dinged up because of bad offensive line play and guys that aren't really in the league or aren't supposed to be in the league and are blocking for backup quarterbacks? And then suddenly somebody's knee gets twisted and now you're looking for a good number two. Was there some story, from 2010 in Green Bay where McAdoo could say, well, we just can't have our young player behind this guy because I remember this one time where somebody got banged up. It just feels like, honestly, again, I support that decision to make sure that he's protected by only the best guys. I just want to see the best guys out there longer.
I wonder if they saw the leg whip on the third down throw that caught him really near his manhood and said, you know what? He just got leg whipped and had to lean back 4 inches shorter. Let's get him out.
Isn't that just like that play is a good example of where their line is right now, which is Vidarian Lowe. God bless him. And he's been okay. I've said this on TV and I swear I mean it. He's been okay for about a half dozen practices. Really hadn't been an issue. And then tonight, you call a screen in part because you want to protect the quarterback, and his guy still somehow gets to Drake Maye and leg whips. And then a play or two later, there's a run play that gets stuffed where he's, it's his guy that ends up blowing the play up. So that left tackle spot, or right tackle, if they end up moving a core for to left, they've got to get that figured out somehow. I don't know how they're going to do it.
Chasing wide receivers all over the countryside. Meanwhile, anyway, what do you think of the receiver usage tonight? You were psyched to see Kayshon Boutte continue on his quest to be the next Robert Woods.
You love that comparison. I don't love that comparison. Robert Woods is he's like a beast physically. I don't think of that when I think of Kayshon Boutte. Like, couldn't you would hand it off to Robert Woods on like a reverse, and you'd expect him to do something with it.
Okay, you forgot Kayshon Boutte's slant touchdown last year from Zappy, huh?
I'm just saying he's not like, I don't think he's going to win because he's an electric player. I think he wins because he's got pretty good hands. I will say that. In camp,
Bobby
contested catches,
Woods is 6 feet 195.
and that's about booty size.
Oh,
But
seems that way.
that now compare their, their combine athletic testing measurables.
If we can get Bobby Woods production,
You're not
Bobby
getting Robert
Woods,
Woods production.
he had
Robert Woods was a
86,
freak.
90, 90 in a stretch. He came into the league with Buffalo. I don't know. Either way, Keyshawn Booty's not going to be Bob Woods.
No,
But you would have liked to have seen less Keyshawn Booty, more Jalen Polk, who made 2 very nice hands catches. And how many catches for Baker? Was it just the one in garbage time?
he had the one from Joe Milton. It was Joe Milton's first pass. Nice, strong dart to the right sideline. He had another that was called back, I believe, because of a hold.
Yeah, on the
Um,
sideline there.
on the sideline that looked like actually a pretty nice catch. Those are the kinds of catches he's been making in camp. Leaves his feet and gets jarred and still comes down with the ball. So I would have liked to see a little more usage from those guys. I do question whether or not the targets go to the rookies, whatever. I would like to see more. I would also like to see like Tyquan Thornton play as much as Booty or Jalen Reagor play as much as Booty. Why are those guys, Tom, being treated like they're better than Booty? Like, I think they all should be sort of right around the same area as on the roster bubble and needing to show what they can do. And Tyquan Thornton, I know he's dealing with some soft tissue stuff, so maybe that's why, but he played like 2 series, I think, tonight, and then he was done. I don't think he deserves that, the basically starter level treatment, right?
Maybe it's the injury. We still haven't gotten to the defense yet, which we will get to because that's the bright spot and it continues to ooze confidence. But I did notice that Carolina looked like ass. So at least the Patriots are not the worst team in the league. I mean, it's first-year head coach there too. They looked wholly unprepared for a preseason game.
No doubt. I said that to Sosi during the broadcast. At least they're not Carolina. It's so jarring to see a team be so disorganized. I guess that's how the Patriots looked at times in recent history this time of year. But my goodness, 9 penalties for 61 yards, and they had an intentional grounding that lost them about 18, and they damn near had a
passes, big
strip
ass
sack,
sacks.
strip sack fumble almost right at the goal line for a touchdown. They were lucky the quarterback's ass was on the ground when it happened, but
Near safety.
a near safety. I mean, it was nuts. The amount of stuff, delay of game, holding, illegal contact, false start. I mean, they're a first-year head coach too. And Tom, you look at their roster. I know these guys didn't play. Their roster offensively does not look that bad. Xavier Legette and Adam Thielen and Deontay Johnson at receiver, and 3 new interior offensive linemen. All are veteran guys who have played real football and played well. 2 tackles. The tackle spot for them was kind of set last year. Taylor Mouton and Ike Ekwonu. Those guys should be okay at tackle. So like the roster outside of quarterback, like who knows what the quarterback is, but the roster ain't bad. Anyway, I know, again, those guys didn't play, but boy, the operation, garbage.
And the Patriots weren't smooth. So we're not absolving that.
Right.
The Patriots. But again, people should recall how bad it looked in the preseason games for the Patriots in 21 and 22. They had 12 penalties in each of those 2 games. And that's going to be a constant reminder of when this team struggles of don't forget how bad it was for the last 3 years. Don't be comparing it to 2014 here. Meanwhile, defense, my guy Marco Wilson early in the game, your guy Daniel Aquale and Jeremiah Barnes with a PH. Just really, Penny Jennings. They're just Dietrich Wise. Why was that not a horse collar? Because he was in the pocket.
Good question. I think it's like, I think it's the, is it potentially the angle at which you pull the person down? It didn't feel like he was pulling down the window shade the way that those calls often, you often see those calls. So I don't know. It's a good question.
The defense, that was one good thing that I thought came from this. We've seen the Patriots running game get stuffed and stuffed and stuffed and stuffed. And Carolina might have gotten it even worse than the Patriots have gotten it during their practices. You know what? I'm going to be honest here. It's the aftermath. Phil's been on the radio for several hours. I've done a crap ton of TV. I watched Bailey Zappi for 2.5 quarters. I didn't eat dinner because I didn't plan ahead, didn't bring food for myself. I'm hungry as hell. We're going to be back at you. I'll probably do one of these after the Sunday practice in one of those handhelds.
Wow.
So follow that on Twitter.
Wow. I like that.
I'm
We
putting
got
a
an
fork in
expats
this.
pod that's going to be up soon too.
All
Keep
right,
an eye out
Casey
for the next
Keene,
pets.
Thanks for staying up late and producing this. Good night, everyone.
Joe Milton talk on next pets. Okay.
Oh,
We
did
didn't
we
do
not
a
do
lot of
that
Joe
now?
Milton here. What'd you think? Give us a quick and dirty on Joe Milton.
I thought Joe Milton was outstanding. I really did. I thought that being as creative as he was, one thing that impressed the shit out of me was that he kept his eyes downfield, and the McCourty's talked about this on the broadcast, kept his eyes downfield on that scramble play. And when a guy steps up, how often have we seen a guy step up 2 times and then throw an absolute javelin down the field? There was such an opportunity for Joe Milton to throw it out of the stadium just to show everybody.
Mhm.
But he showed the composure to say, I'm not doing that. I'm going to run this and pick up 13 or 8 or whatever it was on that particular scramble. So you said it, I'll say it. We know that he has a cannon. It was great to see the cannon, but it was also really great to see the decision making.
Mm.
And I'd love to see him. Ideally, Phil, it's May and Milton are interlinked as the Patriots quarterback room for a few years.
It would be really interesting if they were able to make that work for a few years. I wonder if Joe Milton continues to light it up in preseason, Tom, if they don't try to trade him. And, if not
would
this
never
year,
do
then
that.
maybe next year.
He looks too much fun. He
He's
looks
very
too
much
friggin'
fun,
good.
but you drafted one guy at 3 overall and one guy in the 6th round. You got to give the 3 overall guy a chance to play and play a lot. And if somebody's
Turn that
offering you a
suit
real
now.
pick,
If your 3rd overall pick does happen to get hurt, knock on wood for Drake Maye, he does happen to get hurt, and the 6th round pick turns into a guy who plays well enough for somebody to say, I'll give you a 3rd round pick, or if he Jimmy G's the hell out of the situation.
I give him a lot of credit. I know there are people out there who still don't think he can play. Maybe he can't. I don't know. Who knows? But a lot of college football experts out there. Oh yeah, Patriots people find out eventually this guy actually stinks at football. But I give him a lot of credit.
Stink at football. We saw 7. How many quarterbacks did we see come through here? 9. We know stinks at football.
That did not stink. That did not stink. I like the touchdown throw too. The quarterback movements in the pocket, the little shoulder shake, looking to the right, moving the defense, coming back to the left, making a good throw. So I give him a ton of credit for playing the position. He's not just a big bag of quarterbacking traits. He's trying to play the position. I give the coaches credit too. I think he's been working a lot with TC McCartney and Ben McAdoo and Van Pelt. Obviously, he's in those meeting rooms, but I feel like he's gotten a little extra tutelage from some of those guys. Put Evan Rothstein in there too. Evan Rothstein's coaching those quarterbacks, so they're doing a good job with him.
Yeah. Last thing, to throw it the way he did, and to keep making sure that his platform was under him, and not be falling down, falling to his left, falling forward as he threw the ball. And I bet if I looked at it, and some quarterbacks coach pointed out, there'd be some shit that I wasn't noticing, but it looked the way it was supposed to look. So, goodbye, number 2.